It's spreading. Great. All right. Without further ado, because I know we have a great panel, and I know you're going to want to hear from them, and I am going to move this podium, because then I think it will be easier for all of you here to be able to see, okay? The rest of you all will be able to, so just bear with me for a minute. So, our esteemed panel today will be moderated by a terrific colleague of mine, the Chief Learning Officer from the EPA. Her name is Sharon Ridings. She's sitting right in the center. I've known Sharon for probably about 4 or 5 years now, I think. And she does a terrific job. She does my job in her organization. She's got tremendous experience. She has been a women's advocate and a leader, a leading blaze trailer in her own organizations wherever she has been. Our panel, she'll be posing the questions and speaking and enabling and moderating the panel. Our esteemed panel, Gail Adams. She is the Director of Intergovernmental and External Affairs for the Department of the Interior. She's in the immediate office of the Secretary, as is my organization. Her responsibilities are to enhance communications between the department and the governors, elected officials at the state and local levels, and the varied organizations that represent interests to DOI. Obviously, you got to have a certain amount of poise, ability to build partnerships and build relationships, as well as speak with credibility and truth. Next is Councilwoman Valerie Ervin. And she is the chairperson of the Council's Education Committee. You'll have to, excuse me, I do have to read these things because I can never commit everything to memory. Have you ever run into people who have these little joke things and they never get the punchline correct? Well, that's me. So I do have to read these things. I apologize. She reviews more than half of Montgomery County, Maryland's operating budget. It's a pretty big job. In addition, she serves on the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. She conducts reviews, program oversight for various county departments and offices. Valerie, how many folks do you have working in your organization? 150. Not too shabby. Chairman Hersman has been the board member on the scene for NTSB, the host of this organization. We're sitting in the NTSB auditorium, obviously, and she's probably got a lot of experience being in this room before. She chairs the hearings. They look at major transportation accidents. Her leadership has created a more transparent and accountable organization by significantly increasing quantity and quality of NTSB information available on the agency's website. She holds public meetings, which are, as you all well know, essential for creating and spreading the federal message with specific focus, obviously, on transportation safety. We all got in cars today, or trains, or take planes. And so all of these different venues that we have really fall here in terms of, and lest I forget railroads, all fall here. Rene Redwood is the CEO of Redwood Enterprise LLC, and this is a consulting practice that provides information on diversity, how to create inclusive workforces. She served on a court-appointed task force to oversee a Fortune Corporation's compliance with a historic discrimination settlement agreement and evaluates programs and institutions to shift organizational culture and climate. And those of you who do work in culture work or climate work in our organizations, and every organization that we are in has culture and has cultural issues. And some of them relate to us, females in the organization, and how we get ahead. So with this terrific panel, you'll be able to ask questions. And let me remind you, 3x5 cards. Raise your hand if you need another one, because our interns will be happy to come around and give you another one. but you'll have an opportunity to ask them specific questions. And without further ado, Sharon, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We're glad to have you here today. We're going to ask our panelists a series of questions. And as you're listening, you may think of a question that you'd like to ask. And as Sandy said, we have the cards that we passed out that we encourage you to write your questions down so that we can ask these esteemed women some of their thoughts on those questions. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Our first question, I'd like to start with Gail, if I may, and then we'll work over and then back onto this side. So Gail, let's start with you. Where did you start your career, and how did you get started? And something I'd like you to weave into that is, were mentors involved in your career development?
Definitely, mentors were involved, and I think the earliest mentor that I can recall is Mrs. Hooks. She was one of my teachers, and I was in elementary school, probably 5th grade, and for the people who know me, I'm from Louisiana, so I'm very sociable and very social, and I love to talk. And one of the things that my teacher would tell me, she said, well, Gail, when you grow up, you really need to get a job that will pay you to talk, because you love to talk. So that always stuck with me. And then, of course, my family members, namely my father, would say the same thing. So I started my career after college. I started in the journalism business. I was an anchor and a reporter and a public affairs talk show hostess for the NBC affiliate. And from there, it just seems like, I was always kind of just in the right place at the right time, which was great, because I've always just believed in doing what I enjoyed and not necessarily pursuing money, because I believed if I did what I enjoyed, I'd be super, super great at it, and the money would just come. And I've just found that throughout the evolution of my career, that's the way that it's happened. Being from Louisiana, I was living in New Orleans at the time of Hurricane Katrina, lost everything that I had to start all back over again, and went to work for FEMA the first day that it opened its doors in Louisiana following Hurricane Katrina. Took a job as a switchboard operator, which was definitely outside of what I had been doing, and definitely not on my personal career path if I had planned it. But even with that, because of all the people I had worked with over the course of the years as they were coming through, they'd say, well, why are you sitting here at the help desk? And I'm like, because, I lost everything that I have. I had to take a job. And one day, a person came to see me and they said, well, we're looking for you. And I'm like, why? And they said, well, we understand that you really should be with us. And so from there, I was promoted to external affairs within the FEMA organization, and went on to become the Intergovernmental Affairs Director for the Louisiana FEMA office. And then that little thing called the oil spill happened. And so when that happened, FEMA loaned me to the Coast Guard to be the Louisiana liaison. And from there, the DHS Intergovernmental Affairs Assistant Secretary called me at 11 o'clock one night and said, we really would like you to take over as the Governmental Affairs Officer. And I'm thinking, well, that's great. I can do that for Louisiana. And she said, no, for the entire Gulf Coast. So I then went on to become the Governmental Affairs Officer for the oil spill. And then from there, people at Interior said, we really need to get you to D.C. We really like your work and everything. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So, but here I am. Thank you. But I could not have done it without mentors and, people who were investing in me all along the way. And most of those people, of course, were my family who actually supported me through everything. But, those teachers were critical in my early years. And then in middle school, I had Miss Wiggins. And so, and these are people that I remember because they did really make an investment in my life.
Great, thank you. I want you to think about some of the things that Gail has said so far. Think about when you're looking at someone and you see that person today, you don't really think about the travel, the adventures and the experience that they've had to go through as they got to where they are today. And so I'd like you to think about those things as our panelists are sharing their stories. Okay. So, Rene.
Good morning. My name is Rene Redwood, and I always start out with my name, R-E-N-E. Most people think that's the masculine spelling of Rene. I'm a first-generation American. I was born in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty to immigrants My mom and dad migrated to this country because they believed if you worked hard and played by the rules, you could succeed. They also believed that it was important for my brothers and I to have a sense of service and public service, and that everybody was created equal. So that gives a context for some of the work that I do right now. I'm a chemist by training, and now I have my own consulting practice where we look at relationships. We look at the strategies that organizations can put in place and then the infrastructure that's necessary, allowing me to use the analytical skills that I developed through my chemical pursuit to apply it to human interactions. Mentors. Clearly my parents were mentors for me. My teachers. But one of the people who was most important in helping me understand that it was important to pursue my passion, regardless of what my academic and my educational background was Dr. Dorothy Height. I was blessed to have her as a mentor, in that she saw, as she said, a twinkle in my eye. Now, I thought that was the glare on my glasses, but I let it go. And one of the things I love most about Dr. Height is that she sees beyond the individual, and she looks to one's heart and one's spirit, and she encourages that growth. Dr. Height passed now 2-3 years ago, and yet her presence is still with me in so many ways, along with the presence of my mom. Again, two women who were critical in my development and my understanding that if one pursues one's passion, reward and resource would come. And importantly, one of the pieces on resources that we look in terms of resource in terms of time. How do you use it? Can you use it well, or do you use it poorly? Your talent. Talent is something that's not only what's learned in a book, but our experiences, and taking advantage of each and every opportunity that presents itself, being open and receptive to what might be in your path. And then treasures. Treasures are not just financial. Treasures are about relationships. They're about being connected to one's spirit, feeling good about what one does. So as the CEO of Redwood Enterprise, it's a collaborative business practice. So I don't have staff, but what I do is I work with a network of small businesses, consultants, contractors, and we actually partner with several large mega firms in order to be able to do what is my passion. That's enabling institutions, organizations to see and value individuals for what they bring to bear, not simply how they present, but what those talents. In diversity, we talk about what is diversity, and we say it's a diversity principle, that each person is unique and they have a unique contribution to make. That's what diversity is. It's more than the demographics that we routinely talk about, but it's about what those contributions are. And so for that reason, my mentors have enabled me to be able to see and work, and I recognize it's an ongoing process. We look at, some of us might know Maslow's hierarchy about self-actualization. I'm striving. I think I'm still on the survival piece, but I'm trying to do the best I can each and every day. And so that's been my path. I won't go into my whole bio because it looks like I can't keep a job. But it's actually been a series of opportunities that have presented themselves. And as I said, being open and receptive. You don't know what might turn your path. I was doing research on potable water technologies. Next thing I knew, I was playing tennis with a good friend, and her mother said, "You're playing too much tennis. You need to volunteer." Volunteered for Senator Dodd. Next thing I knew, I was on campaign, from the campaign to the staff, from the staff to working with another researcher, from working with a researcher to forming a company. We worked to get Governor Clinton. Remember that guy, Governor Clinton? He was the governor, and we were the research firm that helped him, quote, build a bridge to the 21st century. Upon that, was appointed by the president to head the Presidential Glass Ceiling Commission. And many of us who have been here understand what glass ceilings are. Those are the barriers that impede our progress and our advancement to reach our full potential. And so that is part of my path, and mentors have always presented themselves along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Rene. So we'll switch to this side of the table, and let's start with Councilwoman Valerie Ervin.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's been so fulfilling to be part of this panel and hearing the stories that we just heard from Rene and from Gail. And like them, my path here has not been linear by any stretch of the imagination. And so I'm trying to, as I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, I don't know where to begin. At what point along the path do I want to start talking? So let me just begin by saying I moved here to the Washington, D.C. area in 1987, and it was almost an accident that I got here. I happen to have been working in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I say I'm from. I'm actually not from anywhere because I'm a military brat. My father was in the Air Force, and I was born on the island of Guam and lived all over the world, actually. But we ended up in Albuquerque at an Air Force base there, and I started volunteering. A lot of people do that. I started volunteering on political campaigns because I've always been very interested in the political context, not as someone who would ever run for office myself, but just interested in helping other people reach that goal. So I was volunteering, and I was working at a union, of all things, because my mother told me when I was 16, because I was so painfully shy, she said, you need to go get a job where you have to interact with the public. So I went to work in a Safeway store, sacking groceries, when I was a junior in high school. And little did I know that that job that I thought was only going to be temporary ended up being 10 years. And the reason why is because I got pregnant at a young age, and I had a baby. And as I was in college at the time, I had to drop out of school and see all of my peers go on, and I became a mom. And I never thought that I would end up in this place, so I'm trying to figure out how to tell this story. So I had this child. I ended up volunteering on a political campaign. Someone noticed me and approached me from an international union based in Washington, D.C., and she said, I've been watching you, and I would like to offer you a job, just out of the blue sky, to come to Washington, D.C. to work for me as my assistant. Not her assistant, but the assistant director of a department called the Women's Affairs Department. I moved here with my little boy, sight unseen, never been to Washington, D.C., and I have been here now 25 years. I'll get back to this when we get to the question part, but I somehow ended up leaving the union because I was traveling a lot, and my child started to grow up, and I needed to be home more. So I decided to take a job in Montgomery County, Maryland, and my son went to school, and I started noticing something about raising a little black child among a lot of white kids in Montgomery County. And one of the things I noticed as a parent who was very involved in school was that at my son's elementary school, the story really is going somewhere. At my son's elementary school, he was in the 3rd grade and came home one day and he said, Mom, the teacher is putting me in the lowest reading group in my class. And I said, oh, that can't be right, because this was a child who read the sports page in the Washington Post in the 3rd grade. So he was an avid reader. And I said, oh, there's a mistake. He said, I'm telling you, my teacher put me in the lowest reading group. And I said, well, I'm making an appointment. So the next day, I arrived at his elementary school, and I said, I'd like to meet with the principal, and I want to meet with the reading resource teacher. And they came, and they brought me into a room, and they said, you know, Miss Ervin, and this is a direct quote, most parents think their children are smarter than they really are. And I thought, wow, what a thing to say to a parent. I said, well, that might be true, but I would like my son tested. And then I had the wherewithal to have him tested privately. It cost me $2,000. A lot of parents can't do that. So we had these parallel tracks going. They were testing my son. I took my son out of the system and had him tested. And lo and behold, the test came back, my own private test came back that my son was reading at a 10th grade level. And they were going to track him in an area where a lot of, I know a lot of moms in here know what I'm talking about. So that was my politicization around the achievement gap. And I'm going to stop here for a second because that's how I got in politics. I decided that there were a lot of boys, like my son, whose parents were working, they couldn't get off, they couldn't go to school, they couldn't participate. And I decided if this was happening to my child, it surely was happening to a lot of people's children. I decided to run for the Board of Education. I was only the second African-American woman in Montgomery County to ever sit on the board, ever, which I thought was ridiculous. Then there was an opening on the county council, and I was encouraged to run for an open seat. I ran for the open seat. I won. I was the first black woman to ever sit on the council. So I'm now in my second term. I'm a big troublemaker, proud of it. I served as the council president last year, and one of my proudest accomplishments was last year I was named by the Washingtonian magazine as one of Washington's top 100 women, and I did that on the backs of other women who went before me, but because I'm a fighter for these young children who need a champion. So there's a lot more to tell.
So from our shy troublemaker, we'll go ahead and move on to Chairman Hersman. Thank you.
Can I just listen, please? Gosh, I feel uncomfortable following all these incredibly accomplished women. Valerie, I too was an Air Force brat. I moved all over the world and didn't really live in any one place for very long. And so I thought my career path was going to be traveling and working in international relations or international affairs. And in fact, that's one of the degrees that I went to school for in undergrad. But when my sophomore year came around, I went up to the Hill and I did an internship, and that made all the difference for me. I did an internship my sophomore year. They asked me to come back the summer of my junior year, and then after I graduated, they asked me to come back for a full-time job. And I started out in a position in that office, answering phones and handling the congressman's schedule. And I probably worked in every job in that office over the next 7 years. And I was very young, and they gave me a lot of responsibility very quickly. And I will always remember all the people who supported me and believed in me. And I think that that's definitely a common theme that I'm hearing in the ladies who've spoken before me. When you talk about mentors, I think a lot of times people think mentors are people who are above you, who help you and give you a hand up. I think mentors are all around you. I think there are mentors, and especially as you begin to move up the career path, there aren't a lot of people above you sometimes. And I think you have to look around you, and very often it's the people who work for you, for people who are your administrative staff that show you sometimes the way things need to be done, that demonstrate through their actions and their behaviors things that you want to emulate. I think you watch people who are all around you and you see what they do and how they react. And I think mentors are all around you. And in fact, for me, and I think this is a problem really for women, that we don't believe in ourselves. I think if you take men and women and you put them beside each other and you ask them how they performed, I think the men will, for the most part, say, I was great. And I think the women will say, well, I could have done this better, or I didn't do this very well. And we're very hard on ourselves, we're very self-critical. And a lot of times it's other people who see something in us that are able to tell us, and I've heard this in the other women too. So I think it must be a very common experience. I worked on the Hill for 12 years, 7 years on the House side and 5 years on the Senate side, and I worked for people who were so smart. They taught me so much. I learned a great deal by really sitting at the feet of the masters and just absorbing what was going on. I absorbed the good things, and I tried to leave behind the bad things. And I think that's one of the challenges in life, to kind of weigh all of that and incorporate into your own style the things that you think work. And in fact, when the opportunity came to the board, came around, it was actually 2 male coworkers who were the ones who were the biggest, proponents of telling me that that's what I should go for and that's what I should do. And they supported me and really helped me see the way to do it. So I think, mentors are all around you, and I think you have to look to those people who help you identify the things that you can improve, and also identify your strengths, and give you that good feedback that you need, because we all need feedback. And I think the best mentors are able to provide you critical feedback, but also positive feedback. So when you're needing it and you're feeling down and you're ready, you're ready to not be a troublemaker anymore, they're the ones who remind you, but you're a good troublemaker. You're doing good. Keep that up. And I think that's something that we all need to do to support each other. And I think for us now, it's a challenge about how do we give back, because one of the things that's been very frustrating for me is, as I have increased my responsibilities, it increases the demands on my time and leaves me less and less time to do the things that I really would like to do, because there are so many other things that I have to do. And so I'm excited to hear from Rene and maybe some of the others to understand how they have figured out how to incorporate that into their career path.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit about accomplishments. Every one of us has something that we're very proud of as we've been able to accomplish in our careers. So why don't we start on this side, if we will, with Councilman Ervin, and talk about, what are you most proud of? What is an accomplishment that you've had in your life that has really helped you to stand out?
I feel accomplished every day I go into my office and work with the 8 other council members that I serve with. There are only 3 women on the council, and it is a tough arena. If you have a point of view and you want to get your message out there and do what you came to do, and I came to serve people, and I want to continue to serve people. But I think in that context, one of the proudest moments I had was 5 years ago when I realized that the state of Maryland was receiving federal USDA funds into the state and the counties to feed children during the summer. The problem was nobody was accessing the money, so the money was sitting on the table. And as you all know, in your own communities, the summer is very scary for these children who are on free and reduced meals during the school year, and then summer comes and you don't know how they're feeding themselves. So in Montgomery County, about 45,000 around there, children qualify for free and reduced meals, an indicator of poverty. And we think that's a low number because that's just the families that are reporting. That means that when the school ends for the summer, those kids who normally get free breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner we don't know how they're eating during the summer months. So one of the proudest moments that we had was we said, well, that's ridiculous. We're going to go access that money. And we did. And we opened up 114 school sites throughout the county during the summer. And all these kids have to do is go to the building and get a meal, breakfast and lunch. And I know that in these challenging economic times, lots of families are struggling with feeding their children. And there's something called food insecurity. And in this country, there are millions of families that have to make decisions on, am I going to pay my rent and mortgage this month? Am I going to buy food? Am I going to get medicine? Am I going to put gas in my car? And sometimes food is on the last of the list. And we in this country have to do a better job. I think one of the human rights struggles of our time is going to be how to feed everyone. And so that's one of my proudest moments.
Thank you very much. Chairman Hersman.
You know, I pondered this question because it was really hard. You think about your work life and you think about your home life and what is your biggest accomplishment. I've got 3 boys, and I feel like I've still got a lot of work to do, so I'm not ready to say that I've accomplished anything yet. When I think about my work life, every job that I've had has been a great opportunity to do good. I've worked in public service for 20 years. This month, worked for the government, and I feel like I've made a lot of contributions But I hope that my biggest accomplishment is yet to come. I'm still on my path to try to figure out what I can accomplish and what can be done. And so I feel like every day I come to work and I try to do my best, and I have the opportunity to impact policy or decisions or even people's lives out in the public, people who work in the transportation industry, and the people who work at the NTSB. And so whether it's an accomplishment about one person being able to change someone's life and give them an opportunity that they didn't have, or whether it's getting the national debate to change on what does distraction mean, I think that there are a lot of things that would be hard for me to put a value on what is the biggest accomplishment.
Thank you very much. Okay. Rene, let's go back to you.
I too struggled with the question of what is my biggest accomplishment. There's so many things, little things, that you see when you see a change in an organization, a change in environment. But my biggest accomplishment, I think, would fall on the personal realm. I have a niece. Her name is Rosa Parks Redwood. And she just turned, well, as she told me 2 days ago, she's 5 2/3. And this past weekend, she was talking with me about her upcoming graduation from the Dragonflies, which is graduating from kindergarten. And she says, she calls me Auntie Nay. And she said, Auntie Nay? I said, yes, Rosa. She said, when I grow up, I'm going to be just like you. And I said, well, why? And she says, because you make things happen. And to be able to have an influence for something positive, in my mind, is my biggest accomplishment. Again, on the personal note, I don't have children, but I have godchildren. And my goddaughter, her name is Madison. And she's 11 and a half. Nobody's an even number anymore. She's 11 and a half, and she calls me fairy godmother. And we have one Saturday every month, we have Girls' Day of Pampering. So we go out and we have breakfast and we get our nails done and we just chit and chat and talk, and she has the freedom to ask any question she wants. And so she sits in the back seat because she's not big enough to sit in the front seat, which is one of our big goals for when she turns, quote, 12. And we're driving, and I'm thinking we're just going to have a, what did you do this week and how was gymnastics? And it was fairy godmother. Can girls marry girls? And I'm thinking, oh, wow, here we are. And I said, well, if they love each other, they share benefits, why not? Quiet, I'm thinking, okay, how was dance lessons? It was good. Fairy godmother. Oh, yes, Maddie. Can boys marry boys? I'm thinking, oh, why are we going down this path? It's Saturday morning. I'm not trying to have political conversations. And I said, if they love each other and they share benefits, why not? I asked, well, how's your sister? She's fine. Fairy godmother. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, why? I don't think I met your husband. I said, well, honey, I don't have a husband. Well, that's good. I hope I would have met him. I said, Maddie, why are you asking all these questions? Because I know you'll give me an honest answer. That's my biggest accomplishment. Again, being able to have an influence where people expect authenticity, honesty, feel safe. What is friendship? Friendship is the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh your thoughts or measure words, but pouring all out as it is, chaffed and grained together. Knowing that with a faithful breath, you will be accepted and never judged. And so for me, my biggest accomplishment is to be able to interact with individuals to create change that's positive, and most importantly, for the next generation of young women and young boys. My nephew's only 3, and he keeps asking me if I know a pirate, so I'm waiting for the moment when he may indeed feel comfortable enough to ask whatever question he might ask. But it's a blessing to be able to be available, to be seen as someone who will give an honest answer. And for me, that's my biggest accomplishments.
Thank you so much. Very good. And Gail.
Well, I'm a mom too. I have two sons. They're 21 and 23 years old. So for the most part, I'm done. But as a parent, I don't think you ever really get done. So like you, I have to break this up a little bit. I'm like, okay, there's my personal life and then there's my professional life. So personally, my greatest sense of accomplishment is, even though my children are adults, I'm still very much a mom. And so every now and then I go on Facebook and I see what my sons are saying and what they're doing, because it's still my responsibility to be a guide to them. I can't tell them what to do. Well, yes, I can, and I do, but you know what I mean. So I'm on Facebook, and I'm looking at Adam and Christian's Facebook pages, and I see where they were going back and forth with each other, and my older son Adam said that he had the best mom that anybody could have, and then my younger son Christian said, "True dat." So I'm from Louisiana, so you know that's for me, that's like huge. You know, they think I have it going on as their mom. So I really, really love that, and that's my greatest sense of accomplishment, because as I was rearing my sons, I always wanted them to grow up to be men who had respect for me as their mom, and know that I have an undying love for them, and it's unconditional. And even though I have requirements, and I still do, I still expect them to be accountable and responsible. So for me, that's like a really huge thing. And then on the career side, you heard me talk earlier about working for FEMA, and so as I was doing my work with FEMA and in Louisiana, and of course you know the devastation, and every day, even though I had lost everything that I owned, in my house, my cars, you know, my businesses and everything, but coming in every day to FEMA and knowing that I had my own loss, and a lot of times, you know, women, I think in general, we're very selfless people, but sometimes in some areas you can find yourself being a little selfish. And so, you know, every day coming in and just, you know, getting call after call from, you know, person in distress after person in distress, and not having a place to live, a solid place to live myself, and the things that I needed, and you know, to make a stable life for myself and for my family. But having to stay grounded in why I was there, and reminding myself that I wasn't just there to collect a paycheck and just there for myself, but I was there for other people too, because for me, my sense of accomplishment comes from what I can do for other people and what I can make happen for other people. And there was one woman in particular, and I never will forget this. When she called, she was in utter distress. I mean, she was screaming and she was crying and she needed help. You know, this was like at the height of the response and everything. And it was just something different about this woman. I could hear it in her voice, and I just kind of felt that she was really on the edge. And so she was the person that I decided that I was going to try to make something happen for. And so it took about a month, but I gave her my after-work number. And I worked with her during the day, and I worked with in FEMA, there's the Individual Assistance Program, and that's the program that they use to give assistance to individuals during a disaster. And when I began to research her case, I did see where we had made an oversight or a mistake, and that she was due to get some assistance. And so I really worked with her through that. And I didn't, after we got it resolved, I didn't hear from this woman, never heard from her, you know, for about a year. And then one day I got this card at work, and she wrote in and she said, you know, she said, "You don't know what you did for me." She said, "At the time when you took the time to help me," she said, "I was literally on the edge, and I felt like killing myself because I felt like there was no hope." And she said that because I had, you know, taken that extra time and really kind of helped her, that I actually saved her life. And so I still have that card today. And I take that card wherever I go. When I moved here from Louisiana, I brought that card with me because it reminds me that no matter where I am, I can bloom wherever I'm planted. I can make a difference wherever I am. I don't have to wait. And at this time, I wasn't the Intergovernmental Affairs Director or whatever it was at the time as I was going up the ranks or whatever. I don't have to have a particular title to be a leader and to show leadership and to be assertive and to help somebody. You know, if you do what you're supposed to do, the titles, I think, will come. But for me, that helps to keep me grounded. It helps to keep me rooted in what my core beliefs are. And it helps me not to forget that no matter where I am, I'm there actually to help other people. So that's my great sense of accomplishment.
Thank you, Gail. So before I ask my next question, I'd like to challenge the audience, too, to think about some of these questions that we're asking our panelists and answer them for yourself. What is your greatest accomplishment? Because if you're coming to something like this, it's a learning experience, and it's an opportunity for you to reflect on, for yourself and listen to what's going on here and what you'll take away from this. So let's go, let's see. Let's start with Chairman Hersman, if you would. Let's ask you the next question is, what are your thoughts on work-life balance? I'm hoping you had some time to think about this now. And is it different for men than women?
Gosh, I didn't think I was that funny. I think that balance is kind of a problematic word when we talk about work life, and so I don't want to try to impart anything that I have to say, because it's very different. Everyone is in a very different place. They're in a very different experience, circumstances, their support network, all of the things that they have to handle are very different. And so for me, I can tell you that there are times where I've had to make decisions about the career path that I wanted to pursue. When I worked on the Hill, I had two of my boys when I worked on the Senate side, and it got to a point where 4 nights a week I wasn't able to be home before they went to bed, and so I just wasn't seeing them. I realized that was not a sustainable path for my husband and for me if we were going to keep it together. And, I think the men in your life, too, they're like children in many ways. They need your attention. And, and it's true, right? So I have a very supportive husband. I married my high school sweetheart. I was very, very lucky. I met a wonderful person very early in my life, and we made it through a lot of different transitions together. But I think you have to guard that part of your life, too. I think the balance part that's important is you have to have a healthy work life and a place that you get satisfaction out of your work, but you also have to have the Madisons, the Adams, the Christians, the friends, the family, the people who love you in that other part of your life, because I guarantee you things will not always go well at work. And you will have bad days, and you will feel very disappointed in other people, and sometimes disappointed in yourself. And you need kind of that balance in your life to have something else, no matter what it is, friends or family, your church, whatever you have that you turn to kind of deal with what's going on in that other part. And the same is true. You're going to have challenges in your personal life. You're going to lose parents. You're going to have challenges with your children. You're going to have things that you feel frustrated about, and it's nice to be able to come to work and have a good place to be. And so I always tell people that there's kind of a place on my drive home. I've always worked in Washington for the last 20 years, and I live outside the Beltway in Virginia, in Lorton, and so I have a long commute. And no matter what time I leave, there's an exit on my drive home where I stop feeling guilty about how early it is that I've left work and all the things that are on my to-do list and my desk and in my inbox that I haven't done. And I start feeling guilty about how late I'm getting home and all of the things I've missed with my children and the activities and the things that I haven't done there. And so it is a constant struggle. It is not anything that you ever achieve any equilibrium on. It's a teeter-totter. There are times where work needs you more and you have to make the right choice. And there are times where home needs you more and you need to make that right choice. And hope that you have supervisors and coworkers and other people who support you and understand you when you need to do those things. I have found in the supervisors that I had who took care of me and made sure that I had what I needed, that my loyalty to them was unequivocal. I appreciated so much when they gave me the flexibility I needed. And I always want to be that boss for people who work for me. To to recognize that there are times in people's lives where they really just need a break. They are dealing with some hard things, and you have to help figure out how to get them through that, because you know what? When they come back, they will be the best performers, because they know that there is that grace that people have shared with each other, and they will give it back to you, and it does come back. About the men and how it's different for them, I can't kind of apply this to all men, and so I'll just talk about my husband. I sat on the bed as he was actually laying in bed, ready to turn the lights out. I still had laundry to do, emails to answer, stuff to clean up, lunches to pack for camps, and all of those things. But he was going to bed, and I said to him, so what do you think? Do you think the work-life balance is different for men and then for women? And and he looked at me and he was like, I don't know. And I said, whatever, just go to sleep. And I thought, you know what? It was almost the kernel of the difference between the two of us. When it is time, when he decides it's time to go to bed, he is right for the bed. He lays his head on the pillow, and literally he's snoring within seconds. And me, I can't hardly ever get a good night's sleep. I wake up, I worry about things, I can't get back to sleep, I think of things I haven't done. Sometimes I just think, well, I'm just going to get up and go ahead and take care of these things because I'm going to lay in bed and toss and turn. I think they compartmentalize. They do what they need to do when they need to do it, and then they put it away. And he can sleep through the night, no problem. But me, I don't feel like I've gotten 8 hours for a really, really long time. So, but I think everyone's different. And that being said, I'm making fun of my husband a little bit. He is the very best partner that I could have. He is wonderful. He's 100% supportive of me. He doesn't give me a hard time most of the time. But you do have to take care of all of the relationships in your life. You have to nurture all of them. And I have 5 boys in my house. I have 3 sons, my husband, and I have a male au pair. His name is Ervin, and he's our Manny. And so I have plenty of help, but I also have to take care of all of those boys. They are all very precious to me, and they all have different needs. And it really is hard, because I feel like as the mom, as the wife, as the boss, as whatever's going on, you're just pulled in 100 different directions, and you're always trying to see to everyone else's needs and what they have. And so I would say for you all, don't feel guilty about taking time for yourself. You can't get very much of it. I know you're all women in demand, but you know what? If you need to go have that pamper morning with Madison and get your nails done, you have to be able to carve out some of that for yourself too. You have to maintain your own health and well-being as well.
I think you had an answer to your own question. Why don't we come over here to Gail? And do you have anything you can add to that?
Ditto. The one thing that I can tell you, had my sons been younger, there's no way I could do the job that I do right now working for Secretary Salazar, because I'm basically on the road two weeks out of a month with my own travels, with the Secretary's travels and his meetings. And I think you're right. It really does depend on where you are. And because my sons are adults, I don't have to have a life other than my career, what I'm doing right now, because they're adults and they're gone. But even with that, we as women, I think we often have it in the back of our minds, and we operate off of the fact that we have to do so much more. I don't think we ever get to a point where enough is enough. It's like, yeah, I've done enough for today, or I've done enough in this area. And so we're constantly wanting to make sure that everything that we've done is 100% adequate. And so sometimes, even though I think that I've done it all, and then when I go home at night, I still can't sleep, and I have nobody. I'm not married. I have no kids at home with me. But I still can't sleep because there are all those other things that are going through my mind, what I need to do the next day, what I didn't get done this day. other ideas about things I could do to make everything better. So, I think that we do have to realize that we can't conquer the world in a day. No one can. And at some point in time, enough is enough. And then we do have to take that time for ourselves and time to rest. Every now and then, after I've spent all that time on the road and doing everything, I'm just like, you know what? For the next 4 days, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm going to take 2 days off work and have my weekend, and I'm just going to just decompress, and I'm going to go get that massage and go get my nails done, or I'm just going to sleep all weekend because that's what I want to do, and stay in my jammies and watch black and white movies because I love that. So, but I think
Gail,
that's
can I come to your house this weekend?
Of course. I have an extra bedroom for my clothes and shoes, so. But, really, we do. We have to take some time for ourselves because we can't give people something we don't have. If you are, if you're just totally depleted, you can't give somebody something you don't have. So if you're tired, you're irritable, that's what you're going to give because that's what you have. If you're refreshed and you take that time for yourself, then you're going to be able to give people that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. You really can't give people something you don't have. So we shouldn't just push ourselves till we're totally depleted and the only thing we have to give someone is whatever's left, and that's usually nothing. So thank you.
Thank you. Valerie, why don't we come back to you?
Not much more to add. I couldn't do it as well as you guys just said, but I will say this. I have a problem. And my problem is I don't see work as work. And that is a problem for the people who work for me. And one of them sitting right there, and his name is Ben, and he's the newest one on my staff, and I think he's in his 4th month, and we kind of chew up schedulers, and he's my scheduler, and so he's with me so he can see how not to stack up my day. But I really don't see work as work. I feel so blessed in my life that for my entire life up until recently when I got elected, I had really hard jobs with really tough bosses. And I had one boss who was the president of a small college who said to me, one day, Valerie, you're going to have a job where you get paid for what you love to do. And I think I'm doing that right now. And the balance for me is not to chew up my staff because they might not see work the way I see work. And so they're always saying, how come you never go on vacations? And I don't know because I like working. I don't know. And I'm like you. I have 2 sons who are grown. I'm a grandmother now. My son just reached a milestone age of 30, and I'm outing myself now that I'm of a certain age. And so I enjoy this so much that I am challenging myself all the time about this balance. I live in a house by myself now. I'm an empty nester. And so I'm fortunate that I can come home and there's nobody there tugging on me saying, what's for dinner? Take me to the baseball game. I get to make my own time. But I really do feel like I owe it to the people who work with me, alongside me, that I need to take more time for myself so that they can be more balanced. And so, Ben, you can go back and tell them I said that.
And Ben, you can hold her to that. Just remember, this is being taped. Okay. Thank you. Rene, how about you?
Well, ditto, ditto, ditto. Couple of things. Even the term itself doesn't sound right. Work-life balance. Isn't work part of one's life? So I look at it more in terms of life balance, number one. Number two, one of the things that we found, even when I headed the Presidential Glass Ceiling Commission to look at the barriers that impede the advancement, was that we at that time called it family work, as if I would drop my family for work, not optional. So I think in terms of the phrases and the terms we use, helps us better contextualize what we're seeking to do. And so I look at trying to have a life balance. I work at taking care of my family. While I don't have children, I have parental responsibility. I take care of my dad. A new way of which we're beginning to understand parental care and parental responsibility. It's not just us taking care of the children, but taking care of our parents as they age, taking care of aging relatives who may not have someone. So I have 3 seniors, and if I called them elderly, they would actually probably throw something in this room. 3 seniors that I'm responsible for, 2 aging great aunts who have no children or family, and my dad. So when I think of life balance, it's trying to balance the taking care of them, taking care of myself, running my business, making sure my collaborations with my partners, my business partners, are at least somewhat moving in the same direction, and then serving the needs of my clients, my community, and my church. So my balance isn't so much about something's going to be even. It's recognizing that I'm assuming that over my lifetime, things will balance out. And that whatever kind of is the most pressing need, getting a better sense of how I use my time, for me becomes the question of the balance and life balance. I've now learned that I can't work 24 hours a day. That's just not reasonable, whether it's working with family or in business. And that I've actually have to allocate for myself. I used to allocate 3 hours for sleep, which I recognized was really just not crazy, though I was doing it because there were